and I am here with this Yojana analysis now. We are going to cover this monthly magazine Yojana as we cover every month, and we are now picking up the month of January 2024, the first month of 2024. And we'll be covering this in 3 parts or 3 videos. Now I am here with the first part, but in this part I will be discussing first that what all topics we are going to discuss for this month, and then we will start with the topics over here. There are going to be 4 topics majorly covered. The first is the Jan VISHWAS Act, which will be covered in this part. Jan VISHWAS means, the confidence in the public. Simple translation is this. But the confidence in the public for ease of doing business and ease of living. That is the main crux of this particular law. This particular law has decriminalized certain offenses related to various acts and have decriminalized them to make lives of the people easy, showing confidence in the people that they will not be committing such, I would say, petty crimes, and if they will be committing, some fines and all will be there for them, not the earlier punishments and all which used to invite imprisonment for them. It will also enable justice delivery or efficiency in justice delivery. Earlier litigations used to go, then cases used to run, people used to go to jails for petty crimes, the cases kept on being pending in the courts. Now nothing doing, fine, you pay the fine, you are free. So this is what the main crux or objective of the Jan VISHWAS Act is. Second is Government E-Marketplace, GEM. Okay. This is basically a platform, online platform for procurement of public goods by the government. Earlier government used to, have opaque, I would say, procedures for procurement, and exorbitant rates were also given to the suppliers. And we all knew that rampant corruption was there. So this GEM was introduced in 2016 by the government, and now all the procurement by the central and the state governments are happening through GEM. Next is GST and ease of doing business. Goods and services tax, which came into the picture in 2017, how this has enabled ease of doing business and ease of living. It is based on the concept of one nation, one tax. And the indirect taxes have been subsumed under GST. Indirect taxes like excise or service tax or XYZ octroi and all. So how it has enabled ease of doing business, how it has enabled increase in tax collection also by the government. And last topic in part 3, which we will be covering, is Indo-African relationship amid South-South cooperation. South-South means the global South. Global South is developing and underdeveloped countries of Asia, Africa and South America. So when we are talking about India and Africa relations, India is one end of the global South. It is part of global South. Africa is also global South, developing and underdeveloped. India is developing. So that is why we are calling it South-South cooperation. How this Indo-African relationship is taking shape, and particularly after India's advocacy for inclusion of African Union in the G20. India delivered on its promise to African Union, committed during 2022's G20 summit in Indonesia. And in 2023, under its presidency, India included African Union as a permanent member of G20. So how, India and African relations are taking shape, we will see in this third part. Now, let's begin with this Jan VISHWAS Act. Jan VISHWAS, simply if I translate it to English, confidence in people, that trust on people. Earlier, there were many laws in which there were, offenses listed over there. Petty offenses they were, but for those petty offenses, the punishments were, not up to that level. The punishments were stricter, or punishments were one notch above. Like for example, if any horticulture farmer or any farmer who is possessing cattle takes the cattle for grazing in the forest areas, by mistake, unknowingly, that person does not know that this is a forest area, then that person will be punished. That person will be jailed. Now the provisions have been relaxed. Just impose a fine, no, and leave him. That fine in itself will act like a deterrence. Why to put him behind the jail, behind the bars? It will have an impact on the livelihood of that person. It will create unnecessary litigations in the courts, not required. And this is how the government is showing confidence or trust or faith in its people. And that is why many provisions have been decriminalized according to this Jan Vishwas Act. Ease of doing business will be there, ease of living will be there. These are the two main things which have to be promoted through this Jan Vishwas Act. Although this act has been criticized a lot. What is the need to decriminalize? The society will be more, the people will be more going for committing these kind of offenses. Earlier, these rigorous punishments, they acted like a deterrence. But yes, the government is taking this different viewpoint through this Jan Vishwas Act. Now this Jan Vishwas Act, the Jan Vishwas Act Amendment Provisions Bill 2023 was passed in the Parliament in August 2023. That means in the monsoon session. The bill aims at giving further boost to ease of living and ease of doing business. I have already told you how. 183 provisions in 42 central laws. These will be changed to boost ease of living and ease of doing business. These will be decriminalized basically. So it is like this. It proposes to amend 183 provisions to be decriminalized in 42 central acts administered by 19 ministries or departments. This is basically the aim of Jan Vishwas Act. Now about the bill, the Jan Vishwas Amendment of Provisions Bill 2022 amends 42 laws. We've seen that across various sectors, including prominent ones are agriculture, environment, media, publication, health. The bill converts several fines to penalties, meaning that court prosecution is not necessary. So this will reduce the judicial burden or burden on judiciary, which is already overburdened. It also removes imprisonment as a punishment for many offences. So it is like this. Major acts where changes are proposed: the Indian Forest Act of 1927, Collection of Statistics Act 2009, Food Safety and Standards Act 2006, Indian Post Office Act 1898, Motor Vehicles Act 1988, Legal Metrology Act 2009. Apart from it, pharmaceutical manufacturers and all, they have also, been given this leverage that if you commit petty offenses and all, so you will not be penalized as earlier you were. So things have been relaxed for them. This is something which is, which is, I would say, commendable. But yes, there are oppositions coming to it or criticisms coming to it, that the government decriminalizing can lead to certain malpractices by many people, whoever are the stakeholders in all those 42 laws. They can adopt malpractices. Presently these punishments act like deterrents, and due to these punishments or due to the fear of these punishments, people do not commit those petty offenses also. But if the punishments will be watered down, fines being converted to penalties or decriminalization happening, jails not happening, then it can lead to malpractices or it can lead to increased crimes or increased violation of the laws, if I would say. So the government still has gone ahead with this, the Jan Vishwas Act. The government, with this aim of showing confidence on the people, trust on the people that people will not do this. And the government will also focus that whatever the laws are where the Jan Vishwas Amendment Act is applicable, those 42 laws, their enforcement will be strengthened. Means if a fine has to be there, it has to be there. And the government will make sure that the fine is collected, a penalty is collected. Whatever punishment has to be given, has to be given. Enforcement will be, strengthened. The government will be going for this approach. It has watered down the punishments, but it has not watered down its enforcement mechanisms. So, punishments lowered down, enforcement mechanisms to strengthen. This would be the strategy of the government. If enforcement mechanisms would strengthen, then that would automatically create a deterrence for them. Because poor people, many of them do not prefer to pay fines. They prefer to go to the jails. They are getting, free of cost, roti, pani and all. But now they are not going to the jails. They'll be paying fines. That will also create a deterrence. They do not want to pay fines. It is like that also if you see the other perspective. And banking upon this perspective, the government has gone ahead with this Jan Vishwas Act. So, the Jan Vishwas Amendment of Provisions Act 2023 in the Indian Forest Act 1927. Pasturing cattle in forest land used to attract imprisonment for a term which may extend up to 6 months and fine. The imprisonment and fine have been replaced with penalty. For paying a fine, you had to go to the courts, or courts used to say, but now penalty, the authorities will levy a penalty under the Jan Vishwas Act 2023 and you will be free. This amendment will benefit tribal and villagers who may unknowingly enter forest land while pasturing cattle. Since the violation is not serious in nature and may not be intentional, imprisonment provisions were not justified. However, deterrence is proposed to be achieved by levying penalty of Rs 500. Paying Rs 500 for these poor tribals will also be taxing on their pocket. So they would say that, or they would prefer, or they would try, ki bhai, they do not take their cattle to the forest areas. Because this penalty will be immediate. So it is like this. But earlier, if we used to arrest those tribal peoples, and many of those tribals are the sole breadwinners of their families, their income was impacted because man days were lost. It was like this. So this needs to be understood in this way. Then Jan Vishwas Amendment of Provisions Act 2023, Collection of Statistics Act 2019. In this particular Act, Collection of Statistics Act 2009, what changes have been done? The Act had imprisonment clauses up to 6 months for minor procedural offences like making any false or misleading statement, or information and destroying, defacing, removing or mutilating any information. Violations of provisions of this Act are not severe in nature and do not cause any damage. Now the criminal provisions have now been removed from the Act. This is what the Jan Vishwas Act has done to the Collection of Statistics Act 2009. What changes had been brought to the Food Safety and Standards Act of 2006? This particular law guarantees the various or minimum food standards which have to be maintained, and these minimum food standards have to be maintained in basically the food products which are available, the packaged food items or the food items which you are getting in the restaurants also. Now, to ensure deterrence in major offences, imprisonment or fine in provisions with serious threat to safety of life were either retained or reduced. To ensure deterrence, major offences have been remained the same. They have not been, fiddled by the Jan Vishwas Act in the Food Safety and Standards Act. They are the same. Like if you commit an offence, you are a food manufacturer or a food provider, you commit a grave offence in which there is threat of life or lives are lost due to your negligence in the food products which you are making, then you will be imprisoned. That is still there. But manufacturing and distributing unsafe food attracted imprisonment under Section 59 of this Act. Given the immediate threat to health and safety of general public, this section was retained. But yes, some minor offences, they were decriminalized. Like, for example, You are not following the color standards, means food color standards. Food color standards means in food you put colors. Those are edible colors. But if you are not meeting those standards which have been set by FSSAI, you are putting a particular color more, the other color less than the permissible limits. These are kind of minor offenses which have no as such impact on the health or immediate impact on the health. Then those kind of offenses under Food Safety Act have been watered down. But the major offenses where life is at threat, those have been retained. Those have not been watered down. This is something which we need to understand. Then Jan Vishwas Act 2023 impacting the Indian Post Office Act. How Indian Post Office Act has been impacted. Minor violations like voluntary withdrawal from duty, making false entry in register, defiling or injuring post office letter boxes were punishable with imprisonment up to 1 month, 6 months and 1 year respectively, along with fine. The punishments have been reduced over here. Sending an unpaid postal article used to attract imprisonment up to 2 years. These offences have been removed under the Jan Vishwas Act 2023. It has made life easy. These kind of offences were not those offences ki bhai you go to prison for 2 years or 1 year. Commonsensically if you think. So all these have been removed or they have been watered down. Then the next is the Jan Vishwas Amendment Act 2023 impacting the Motor Vehicles Act. Some minor offences have been made compoundable under the Jan Vishwas Act 2023. What is compoundable? We'll tell you a bit. Contraventions related to driving regulations, obstructing free flow of traffic and producing false registration documents under the Act earlier attracted fines and imprisonment ranging from 6 months to 1 year. They were made compoundable under the Jan Vishwas Act. What is compoundable? Compoundable is a settlement mechanism by which the offender is given an option to pay money instead of prosecution, thereby avoiding long and lengthy litigation. आप वहीं पे fine दो, you give the fine then and there because those offences have been made compoundable. No need for imprisonment of 6 months. You go to the courts, you hire a lawyer, the opposition party hires a lawyer and then tariq pe tariq case goes on. Unnecessary burden on judiciary also. So you pay a fine. Fines are hefty under the Motor Vehicles Act and then you are free to go. It is like this. So many minor offences have been made compoundable. Compoundable means you are paying a fine and you are settling the matter. Then Jan Vishwas Act having its impact on Legal Metrology Act 2009. What impact does it have over there? Procedural defaults such as giving false information to legal metrology officer, controller or director under the Act were punishable with fine and imprisonment up to 6 months in subsequent offences. And they have now been made compoundable. Compoundable, it is a settlement mechanism. You avoid lengthy litigation and expensive litigation also. And you pay a fine and settle the matter. That is compoundable offense. So here in legal metrology also, offences are made compoundable. Now, as I said that the government was criticized. Obviously, the opposition will go for criticizing the government. This is basically the beauty of democracy, isn't it? That you are decriminalizing or you are watering down the punishments, you're changing the nature of punishments. This is going to reduce the deterrence. All these kind of logics were given. An offender is an offender. Punishment should be given. But the government was very much keen on promoting ease of doing business and ease of living. Ease of doing business means ease of working. That tribal person who by mistake took his or her cattle for pasturing on forest land, and let's suppose that person is the sole breadwinner, the livelihood will be impacted. Any restaurant owner not following the food standards, minor variations are there. Would you imprison that person for 6 months or 1 year or 2 years? Major variations are there, then punishment should be there. If you are, producing food which is toxic or which is poisonous. You're using stale vegetables or stale items and feeding it to the people. People will fall in. I still remember somewhere in South India recently it happened ki people consumed biryani or some I think stuff. I think it was shawarma or something like this, and people died. The owners were arrested of that restaurant. That should be punishable. That is punishable. Jan Vishwas Act has not made any changes in that. But yes, minor variations, hampering ease of doing business. The pharmaceutical manufacturers, for minor offences committed by them, not meeting the standards like packing standards and all, stickers and all, you cannot punish them. You cannot imprison them. Last year one case happened when one of the pharmaceutical manufacturers here in the nearby Delhi only, the cough syrup made by that particular manufacturer was exported to Africa, and multiple kids died there after consuming that medicine. The owner is in jail, should be punishable, no doubt about the fact. But yes, minor offences should not be there. Ease of doing business is what is there in the mind of the government, or what is there behind this particular law. That has to be promoted. Ease of living, ease of doing business. These two things. Now, responding to the concerns raised by various groups, now the health minister has said that it is more industry friendly, this particular law. India is the pharmacy of the world, and we have to work towards ensuring that the best medicines are provided while reasonable benefits are offered to businesses. Rationalizing laws, eliminating barriers, and bolstering growth of businesses are important. That is what the objective of this particular bill is, or this particular law is. The government wants to achieve this particular thing. So with this, we have come to an end of the first part of Yojana, where we covered only one law that is very important, Jan Vishwas Act, and already mentioned you the crux. Actually, the crux of entire month's magazine, this month's magazine, is ease of doing business. Ease of doing business was very much struggling in India before 2014, due to which lot of investments did not come to India. People were apprehensive in investing in India ki bhai, if we invest in India, then we'll be running from pillar to post. But now the scenario has changed. Our rankings on ease of doing business has also improved, and now these kind of acts are there, which are helping us promote our businesses, making lives easier for the people as well as for the business owners. Ease of doing business being better and better. So we need to look towards this in this way. And I will be meeting you now in the second part, where we will be discussing about the government e-marketplace, that online portal, and the second is GST and ease of doing business, how GST has promoted ease of doing business in the country. Till then, you guys take care, revise this thing, and we'll be meeting in the next video very soon.